Why do you think the British state is so afraid of an Irish language rapper?
I think when music has 3.5 minutes in people's ears, on the way to work, on the way to school, in the silence of someone's room, it's a powerful moment between the listener and the artist, and they're potent with what they say. They're potent in their message. They're even more potent in the fact that they use an Irish language and English. That's a dangerous tool in a positive way, and I think that's why music and art is pushing that. And reflecting the times has always been very potent.
Well, what the government is always afraid of, it's afraid of the same as it's always afraid of us always all getting together and realising that kind of the reason that things are so awful is the people who are in charge, not the people down the road, not people in boats, not migrants, or whatever target they're choosing at the moment.
I think the government is worried that more and more people are going to be galvanised and more people are going to sort of join the movement, and they are worried that it is showing them up. It's embarrassing for them. It's been almost 2 years. People have not stopped, and that is because we have to be steadfast. People we are determined to be steadfast, and there is nothing that the government can do that is going to stop us in our pursuit to stand up for oppressed people, to stand up for the people in Palestine as they are confronting a genocide that our government is complicit in, and we are complicit in if we don't stand up and say no.
Do you think that this is a distraction, really, from what's happening in Gaza?
I think to some degree this is a distraction in terms of what's happening in Gaza, because I think what the government are trying to do is cause as much anarchy at home in order to distract from what's happening there. But, don't underestimate the intelligence of the common man. Like, we know what you're trying to do, and we're not going to get distracted, and we have the capacity clearly to stand up for each other here, but also to stand up for our siblings over in Palestine. And as I say, we're going to continue and keep on.
Yeah, I think it's a part of the British establishment's general ramping up of repression against the whole Palestine movement. I think they hate Kneecap because they have a lot of support, but it's part of this whole summer of prescribing Palestine action, of doing everything they can to contain what's going on. But everything they do creates a bigger backlash, so it's not working. I think they're scared, basically. They're scared of what's happening.
Scared of what might happen? What is it that they're scared of happening?
I think they're scared of the ways in which the Palestine movement has sustained itself, and not just that, but connects or exposes how what Keir Starmer and the British government is doing in Palestine is connected to the horrors they commit in Britain as well, right? And I think Kneecap are very good at that, about connecting things together, British imperialism, and so I think they're scared of the fact that people no longer respond to the propaganda in the same way. I mean, prescribing Palestine action and then people coming out and supporting them anyway, for example. I don't think that would have happened in the same way in the past, but it's because people hate the media, they hate politicians, and yeah, they're scared of the support, I would say.
I think the history speaks for itself. I think they know full well that Irish resistance has been a thorn in the side, to say the least, of the British Empire throughout the history. There are many parallels between what's happened in Ireland and what's happening in Palestine. The forced starvation, the famine, the censorship, the killing, the execution and targeted systematic killing of people with power. This has been happening for decades and decades in Palestine and hundreds of years in Ireland. So for them, the Irish liberation movement is very much the parallels are clear for anyone who wants to look outside of their own echo chamber and outside of their own box. And I think they fear voices of resistance. They fear liberation movements because the system is corrupt. We are living in a system that is absolutely corrupt to the core. We see it. The masks have been demasked, removed. You saw what happened with Ukraine. They acted within days to sanction Russia. They acted within days to evacuate children for treatment in the UK. And yet here, 2 years on, they have done nothing but rhetoric. And the rhetoric is BS, to be honest.
Do you think it's significant that the person that the government has chosen to single out with this kind of court case is Irish?
Oh, well, absolutely. I mean, there's a long history of trumped-up terrorism charges being used against Irish men, particularly from the north of Ireland. So it's quite symbolic, actually, particularly in the context of quite a hypocritical application of the Terrorist Act. In the north of Ireland, there are proscribed terrorist organisations like the UVF and the UDA who openly fly their flag every year and on streets across that territory. So it's really not an equal application of the law, and I think it's actually been quite helpful to raise that as a discussion item to a greater audience, both in Ireland, in the north and in the UK.
Do you think the government underestimated the strength of feeling that this case would provoke amongst Irish people, both in London, in Ireland and around the world?
They absolutely did misunderstand, but that's not the first time. I think in Ireland we expect to be misunderstood by an imperialist state who maybe think the problem with the Irish is that they didn't want to be British, when really we are our own distinct ancient people with our own customs and our own ideology. That is quite contrasting to an imperialist power such as Britain and on our western coast, America as well.
I just can't bear the hypocrisy of the government. It's like, you know, they name a railway line after the suffragettes and fawn over them. And, you know, this is you know, what's happening now is absolutely diabolical. And they're trying to buy free speech. It's just heartbreaking. I mean, no, Kneecap are like, you know, they're hardly Hezbollah, and they're trying to label them as some sort of terrorist organisation. And it's just, you know, they're a pop group, but because they've captured the imagination of young people, the government are terrified of them.
What do you think the government's terrified will happen?
The government are terrified that they're losing support. Well, they never had any support anyway, but I mean, they know 90% of young people are absolutely opposed to the genocide that's going on.
Do you think it's important that musicians retain their ability to speak the truth to power and not face censorship when they say things? This court case is about something that was said on stage.
It was said on stage, and it was, somebody threw a Hezbollah flag on the stage and he lifted it up. I think it's a total distraction, and I think it's really important if you feel it, and I certainly do feel it, being Irish. I was born here, but both my parents are Irish. I've always considered myself Irish, and I'm a Republican. I believe in a 32-county socialist republic, always have done. And, it depends if you feel it, and I feel strongly that I need to speak up at every turn. I don't know how people can live with themselves if they don't speak up, but all I know is that I have to speak up.
Why is it important for you to speak up as a musician, or is it not just as a musician?
It's important to me to speak up as a human being, to do anything I can. I've got a platform, and to use that platform because it's my humanity. While they're suffering there, while they're being slaughtered over there, our own humanity is dying if we don't do anything about it. So it's my duty as a human being to do any minuscule thing I can, which is minuscule, but whatever I can. I wouldn't be able to live with myself if I didn't.
Why do you think the government's so afraid of Kneecap?
Because I think really Kneecap are changing. The world is changing. Things are changing, and I think Kneecap are spearheading that. The old guard is starting to fall.
I'm a communist, and so for me, what's so significant about the attacks against Kneecap is how I would say Palestine in general has exposed British imperialism, and then with the Kneecap's role in that, also, they're linking it with British imperialism's historic role in Ireland and imperialism in general. What does it do all over the world? Whether it's in Gaza or whether it's in Ireland, it's divide and conquer and exploit to extract as much profit as possible. Kneecap have highlighted that. Palestine is highlighting that. And so I think the only benefit from this whole tragedy is the fact that British imperialism is being exposed. And I would say Western imperialism as an extension, right? I think Western imperialism and the idea of like a rules-based order or democracy or anything like that, that has been shattered. That has been completely shattered. And the thing is, you have artists like Kneecap, they're the only ones saying what is going on. There's no politician saying anything like this. I think it's very interesting that artists are filling this vacuum. There's a vacuum in politics, and it's Bob Vylan, it's Kneecap, it's Sally Rooney. They're the ones who are speaking to what people think and feel. But yeah, I think the connection that Kneecap draws is vital.
I think musicians, artists, I think we have an ability to be able to touch hearts and minds. I think Kneecap has made huge cultural waves. I think that Kneecap speak to so many people, so many young people. And the government finds that a threat. The government finds that a threat because they are reaching the hearts and minds in ways that, you know, other forms, other mediums don't necessarily do. And so, of course, they're going to come for those people that are able to challenge the status quo. That's what it comes down to, the fact that they find them a threat.
You know, Kneecap have been dropped by some festivals, and the music industry hasn't in every corner been so kind to them. Do you think the music industry needs to step up a bit when it comes to supporting artists who speak up about Palestine?
Yeah, I think they do, but I don't think we can wait for a music industry to stand up and wait for validation and a pat on the back from them. I think what everyone's doing down here and what they've been doing for years needs to I think we need to come together more as community, as artists, and maybe spur on bigger artists that have remained silent. I think waiting for an industry that have never really been supportive of you know, politics and resistance and outspokenness in music, waiting for them to validate us, we'll be holding our breath for too long. I would love to see more of it, and we should put pressure on them more and more, but we also, I think, need to come together as artists, because it's artists that have the power. They're the ones that can pull in audiences and speak to the masses. So I think we need to urge artists who've remained silent to be a part of this in whatever way they can, rather than waiting for an industry for validation.
Concerned, and I'm here because I'm an artist. I'm here because I'm about to become a mother. I'm here because, as an artist, freedom of expression is the backbone of our very lives, our creative lives. And what we're seeing is a crackdown on our civil liberties. And so for me, pregnant or not pregnant, it's important for me to be here and to stand in solidarity. I want a future for my child, for all children, where they can be free, live in peace, live in harmony, but we cannot do that when we are seeing a world in which there are people who are living under systems of oppression. We have to show up for each other. And this is what we're all here doing today. We're protesting peacefully, we're standing in allyship with artists and colleagues of ours who are being targeted by the government, by the system, and we are saying no. We are not going to stand by and do nothing. We are going to raise our voices.